Welcome to Nurses Uncorked, where I pour out the unfiltered truth about healthcare life. I'm your host, Nurse Erica, serving up real talk straight from the front lines to your ears. Each episode, I'm uncorking conversations that matter to nurses everywhere, from the hilarious to the heartbreaking, the inspiring to the infuriating. No filters, just authentic nursing experience shared with a splash of humor and a dose of honesty. So grab your favorite beverage, put your feet up, I know they're tired, and join me as we uncork another episode of Healthcare Reality. Now let's get this shift started. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Nurses Uncorked. We are going to be diving into recent events in Minneapolis, the Alex Pretti incident, and some other things that I'm not quite sure on. My good friend, Dr. Matt Garvey, is joining us today. And before we get into everything, I just want to remind everyone to consider becoming a patron of the podcast. There's a link in the show notes. Please don't forget to share this podcast episode with friends, coworkers, family. It really does help. And don't forget to download episodes and rate. All right. I know you recorded some kind of an intro, but I have not heard it. So I don't know, guys, what he recorded. And I barely talked to you because you've been snowed in the South.
Yes, I have. We got about 4 inches of snow and then about 2 inches of ice on top of it. So have lost electricity for a while. It's back on now. It wasn't super long, but there are still parts of my county that I live in that doesn't have electricity, and it's been 3 days. So we don't know how to handle 2 inches of ice and 4 inches of snow where I'm from. And so when we get that, it takes us out. But yeah, we're doing okay. I think this is going to be a really great episode. And what's really funny for those listening is Erica has no clue what I'm going to ask, which I think is the best thing ever.
No, because I like to be prepared. I'm a very type A. I don't like to be caught off guard, but it's okay. It's okay. I know I texted you last night and I said, I really want to do a podcast episode about Alex Pretti and what happened. Because I have a lot of feelings surrounding it, but I don't know what that would look like. I don't know if it's enough for a whole episode. And you were like, I got it. I'm going to record an intro. We're going to do this. And I'm like, okay. And I haven't really talked to you since then. And that was just a text last night. So
it was. It definitely was. And what I think is really interesting is in that conversation, and I don't think this is anything that's secretive, you obviously posted a video on your platforms about this and received a significant amount of backlash. And people who have unfollowed you because of it.
Yeah,
and
blocked. A lot.
Thousands, I think, that you blocked, right?
Yeah.
I think what's important is there's a reason that you're a fierce fighter and a fierce advocate. And you give off sometimes this vibe that I also give off of, which is take no shit attitude. You just come at me and I'm just going to throw it right back at you. But I think that there is a very vulnerable side of you that I get to see as your friend that a lot of people don't get to see. And that there's also an amazing, amazing back history, not even just for you, but your family as a whole, that potentially, and we'll talk about this a little bit, set you up to fight for the things that you believe in and potentially made it so that you had no other option because it's innately who you are. And so those are just some of the things I wanted to get into to give a little backstory of why you felt compelled to speak out on the Alex Pretti, let's call it what it was, the Alex Pretti murder in Minneapolis. So one of the first things I want to get into before we get to that is just your background. So I want to start with your family. And I know a little bit about this story, but I don't think your viewers do. So you've obviously told us that you grew up with a Czech heritage, that your family was from the Czech Republic. What did your family go through? I think that's something that a lot of people do not know.
Yeah, so I'm half Czech. My mom grew up in Prague in the Czech Republic and met my dad when he was in England working. He was American, and so they got married. She moved to California, and here we are. But I am 50% Czech. I've been there many, many, many times. My mom used to send me there for summers. I absolutely love and adore that country, that city. But the Czech Republic, former Czechoslovakia, has a very volatile history, right? They were a communist country for many, many, many years. And one of the reasons that my mom left and went to work in England was her parents were pushing her to get out of a communist country. So my family was very prominent and wealthy, like one of the most prominent and wealthy families in the city prior to World War II. We owned banks and things like that, and my grandfather worked in a bank that I believe the family owned. And when Hitler came in and the Nazis, he was very outspoken against it. And he's lucky that they didn't kill him as they did with most people that were outspoken. But what they did do is they took all the banks and all the money, everything, and made it impossible for him to work in the city anywhere near where they lived. So, he was a very educated man. And in order to survive, he had to go and work and do manual labor for many years and like come home on weekends because it was really far. So we kind of lost everything. And I say we, I wasn't even born yet, but my family. And what I was always told was that my grandmother's brother, so I guess that's my great uncle, helped the Jews escape for a long time during the war. He was young, he was like early 20s, I believe. Eventually, he was caught by the Nazis and he was put in jail. Prior to his scheduled execution, they wrote to or somehow informed his parents that he was going to be executed on a certain date if they wanted to come and say goodbye. And I believe only his father did because his mother, my great grandmother, I guess, couldn't make herself do that, right? And he was executed for getting caught helping Jews escape the country. And so that's what I was always told my whole life until a little over a year ago. And you and I were there in Prague and we were staying with my family because I was hosting the European Christmas market trip. And prior to the start of the group trip, we went to Prague for a couple of days. And so one night we were sitting up with my family talking, and I don't remember how it was even brought up, but I mentioned something about it maybe, and my cousin, kind of my cousin anyway, um, said, "Well, yeah, but it wasn't just him helping them escape." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, it was all of them, but he's the one that took the fall because he wasn't married, he didn't have a family yet, he was young, and by then his sister, my grandmother was married, had a child, everyone else had a family." And that hit me like like a freight train. I did not know that. I was never told that. I'm not sure why I was never told that. I'm sure there was probably fear of horrible retaliation because they remained a communist country until 1991. I want to say right around there, 90, 89, 90, something like that. Maybe that's why. But I never knew that. I always thought it was just him, but apparently the whole family did. And he
I
said, like, "I'll
including
take the fall."
including your grandmother, who
Yes.
would have been his sister, yeah. I
Yeah.
can remember sitting around this table and first of all, for you all listening, if you've never been to Prague, Czech Republic, gorgeous country, gorgeous people. I fell in love. It is amazing, amazing there, and their history, although it is very, very tumultuous because they were such a small country and they were taken advantage of by on so many fronts. Like most countries in World War II, it wasn't just the Germans. They had Soviets and the Germans, coming in. They were, I think, at one point they were controlled by the Soviet Union. Actually,
Yeah.
correct?
For a very
Yeah,
long time.
and then you
Very
have
long
Germany
time.
invading as well. So, they were essentially what I would call one of the battleground countries of World War II. And unfortunately, if you don't know the history, Czechoslovakia were two small countries who kind of came together for that power, and then have since split back into their separate countries. But because they were so small, beautiful, beautiful people. But I remember sitting around that table, and you all, like I said, I've seen Erica's vulnerabilities often. I see them often, right? Because we're friends, and she has this social media facade. And her cousin is
True.
telling her this story.
Because
Her
they
cousin
thought
is
I
telling her this
knew.
story.
I
Right,
I
she
think
had
they
no
assumed
idea.
I knew, so they said it very matter of factly, and I was, like,
And
shocked.
Erica and I both just stopped and, like, looked at each other and was like, "What?" And then there were tissues. There were
Yeah.
definitely tissues involved. But then one of the things that was profound for me afterwards, and I've really never asked you how you felt, is after it was all said and done and you had kind of, I mean, I don't know that you've still digested the fact that your grandmother had
I don't think I
assisted
have.
those individuals and fought, right? Essentially, that was part of the war front in World War II.
Mhm.
It wasn't direct battle, but it was part of the war front. Knowing that your grandmother was on that, and your family as a whole and what they went through and what they lost, I said to you, did it ever occurred to you that you being a fighter may not have been your choice, but your destiny? That you being an advocate is something that came through your descendants that or your family before you that said, this is who we are as a people, and that it was something that you were born into. What did that feel like to you? Did that make you think at all? What were your thoughts whenever I said that? Because I don't know that you had ever considered that either, that
I hadn't.
it
No, I had
wasn't a choice.
never considered that. I don't know. Maybe. I wish I had known all of this. I would have loved to have picked my grandparents' brain about it. I would have loved to have known the details, how they did it, all of that. Maybe it's in my blood. I don't know. My dad has also always been a fighter against anything that he deemed problematic. I don't know. Maybe it is in my blood. But
Yeah.
it's something that I've always kind of struggled with because my life would be a lot easier, truth be told, if I didn't feel compelled to speak out and fight against things. It would like be much more peaceful.
Yeah. No, I 100% get it. You know me, I say all the time, I wish I could not be vocal. But no,
Yeah.
I truly believe that. And sitting there and talking to your family and hearing their story, I do think that there is a part of you who it's just who you are. You had family who had everything to lose, right? And they did to speak out about what was right and what was wrong. And I think that regardless of political party, that's something that you've really never heard Nurse Erica talk about, and we won't talk about that today because it doesn't matter. It's not a political stance. It's about what's right and what's wrong, and it's about human life and respecting that. And I think that your video, about Alex, which we will get into, covered that well. It's not about a party, right? It's about what happened and it being right
Yeah.
or wrong. But I think that giving the background of your family's story maybe helps to show people why you felt the need to speak out on that. Because I think that, like yourself and like your family, Alex had everything to lose and really nothing to gain from protesting in Minneapolis. And unfortunately, he paid the ultimate sacrifice. And so I think drawing those parallels, and it's odd that a nurse influencer would take somewhat of a political stance, right? Even though we may have political conversations all day long
No,
as friends,
I
you
think a
try to
lot
keep
of
that
them do.
off.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't. I
correct.
have been very apolitical online and a lot of people have assumed incorrectly about me. I get crazy messages all the time. And I will say I have voted on both sides of the party line over the years.
Same.
Okay. So I am very much a for the candidate person, although I do lean a certain way for sure, but that's not my thing. That's not what I want to espouse on social media. And so I try very hard to not do that. And I think I've successfully not done that all these years. But this was something that had to be talked about. And what I don't understand is why people have to make it political. Like, you can still have your president, you can still have your party affiliation and love that and agree with that, and yet recognize that this should not have happened, that they did go overboard, that, maybe he shouldn't have done some things, and we'll talk about that. But regardless, this should not he should not have been shot 10 times and overpowered by, I think, 7 men. And, it was so overboard, right? I don't know why
Right.
they can't admit that, because two things can be true at the same time. Just because you say or feel that this was a murder and it was completely inappropriate does not mean that you are turning your back on your party, your political affiliation in any way, shape, or form. I think of, and it's not really comparable, but it's the only thing that comes to mind when, and I'm going to date myself, but when Bill Clinton was president and there was the
Who?
whole Monica,
Who is that?
I know, yeah, shut up.
Who's Bill Clinton?
um, and Monica Lewinsky, the whole controversy and everything, and people were calling for him to be impeached and all of that. I voted for him. I liked Bill Clinton a whole lot. Did I like what he did? No, I thought it was ridiculous. And then that he lied about it knowingly. But at no point was I not able to separate the two. I was able to say, yeah, I support Bill Clinton. I still want him to stay president. I don't think he needs to be impeached. But holy shit, look at what he did. That's insane, you know? I don't understand why people are incapable of doing that nowadays.
Right.
I don't get it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I say the same thing. How did we get here? And you can disagree with certain aspects of a candidacy, of a president, of a regime. You can disagree with components of it and still have support overall, and still have support overall for the United States, right? For our country,
Yeah.
without this, I don't know, unwavering devotion, I guess.
Yeah.
But you know, Renee Good was also killed by ICE.
Yes.
I'm not saying that
In the same
you
city.
in the same city, and I'm not saying that you neglected to make videos about her death, but the elephant in the room here is that Alex Pretti was a nurse,
Yeah.
right? Like that
Yeah.
that is why there was a nurse influencer making a video over the murder of a nurse in the
Right.
streets at what some would call, there's varying opinions, but a peaceful protest. People's perception of the word peaceful may differ widely, right? A lot of people have differing opinions of what peaceful looks like. But as far as I know, there was no violence on behalf of Alex Pretti before this happened, as far as physical violence. So,
Not that we know of. I mean, and here's the thing, I will say, if it were me, if I had been there and saw this going on, I would not have stuck around. I would not have pulled out my phone to record. I would not have approached the general vicinity. I think that was careless. Okay? I would not have done that. However, there were lots of people there doing that, not just him. And he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything illegal. He was well within his rights to be there, to pull out his phone to record. God, there was like 24 people recording, not just him. And he wasn't the only one in that close vicinity by any stretch of the imagination, you know? He had a legal permit,
yeah,
right? That he was
concealed and
allowed to
carry.
have. Thank you. There are a lot of people that say, but I don't know if it's actually illegal, that you're not supposed to bring a weapon to a protest. That may be the case. I
I
don't
mean,
know
we
that.
can get into some individuals who've brought weapons to
Kyle
protests.
Rittenhouse.
Right. Not that
I'm
we
just
brought
saying.
a rifle and murdered 3 people in the street at a protest or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. 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 So there's been a lot of criticism, well, you didn't talk about Renee Good. You didn't talk about Lincoln Riley, the nursing student that was murdered in 2024 in Georgia by an illegal immigrant, I believe from Venezuela. here's the thing. I did share a lot of op-ed pieces about that horrible tragedy, but everybody was talking about it. And if you have followed me for any length of time, you know that I tend to talk about the things that no one else is or not enough people are. So if every single nurse out there with a platform is already talking about it, what am I really adding to that? You know, I like to talk about the things that are not getting the attention that it deserves. So yeah, I don't know. Take that for what it's worth. When I made the video about Alex, I was like one of the very first people to talk about it. Didn't know that it was going to blow up into this huge thing. And I'm glad that it has. I'm glad that people are talking about it
Absolutely.
this much. But when I posted it, I didn't know that. And I thought, someone needs to talk about this. A nurse was murdered today, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so that honestly, you answered my next question. What made you decide, okay, I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about it now. Was it the
Yeah,
fact that he was a nurse? Was it the context surrounding it? Really, what was the pushing, the tipping point where you're like, you know what, I have to talk about this.
certainly the fact that he was a nurse. Absolutely. But I will tell you that day, that Saturday on the 24th, I was giving a speech to a local nursing union. And I was at this rally for hours and hours, meeting tons of nurses. And I didn't know that this had happened because I wasn't looking at my phone. I wasn't on social media. I was engaged. I always get nervous before I speak. So I was very focused. And then I stayed after and I talked to all these nurses. I had no idea that this had happened. And I get in my car afterwards to drive home. I look at my phone. It's blowing up, blowing up. Like, have you heard about this? Two of my very close friends in particular were reaching out to me a lot saying, you have to look at this. You have to look at this video. You have to talk about this. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. What's going on? Let me get home. Uh, by the time I was halfway home, just from seeing like bits of the video and hearing from my friends, I pulled my car over. I didn't even get home. Pulled over in a grocery store parking lot and started looking at it because I thought, okay, this can't wait. This is urgent. This is a big deal. Holy shit. Did you see that video? Oh my God. We need to talk about this. And so right there in the grocery store parking lot is when I started putting it together. I always keep a notebook in my car because it's not the first time I've had to pull over and make a video like that and start taking notes and asking questions. And yeah, I mean, but absolutely it's because he's a nurse. Yes. And you can't say it's not the same or you're trying to just use the fact that he's a nurse. Yes, he was outside of work. He was not identified as a nurse. Of course, no one is saying that he was. But he was a nurse, right? He was, by all accounts, a good person, no criminal background. He looks very unassuming, you know, and he was gunned down. It's absolutely horrific. And so, yes, the fact that he's a nurse called me to talk about that. I can't cover every single thing that happens in the world. I can't. But something like this, I'm going to stop. My entire day is going to get set aside and I'm going to talk about it, especially if at that point, no one else really was.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I think is interesting about this is the response from the nursing community, right? From
Yes.
nursing organizations. And um, I, I do think that the fact that he was a nurse was the elephant in the room. One of the things that we have learned from other events in history, maybe not to this extent, but nurses who have been shamed or ridiculed or assaulted, is when you hurt a nurse, it gets someone's attention, right?
Yep.
It
Right here.
even even if they were not a nurse at the time, or if they were not acting as a nurse, they weren't practicing as a nurse. If you hurt a nurse, it gets attention. We're the largest body
Mhm.
of professionals in the United States. And so when there is
And we were just
a
voted the most trusted profession for like the 24th year in a row or something.
correct. So I do think that, yes, has there been things that you've not covered? Of course. Have they been covered extensively? Yes. Did this feel different because one, he was a nurse, and two, when you covered it, there was no response really on it. But then three, after that, there was an overwhelming response.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
also
So
because there was video to see it with our own two
correct.
eyes.
Correct. Pretty clear video. I mean,
Yeah.
multiple
La
angles, clear video. Yeah, yeah.
Lots of different
So
angles. Yes.
it would be hard for me to think that someone who is listening to this podcast does not know what we're talking about. But if they don't, give us a little backstory on Alex Pretti, the Minneapolis riots, what that looks like right now, the protest.
Yeah. So Alex Pretti was a 37-year-old ICU nurse at the Veterans Administration Hospital Medical Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And here's the statement I will read from the White House. Okay. Federal officers were conducting an operation as part of the Trump administration's immigration crackdown and fired defensive shots after a man with a handgun approached them and violently resisted when officers tried to disarm him. That's their statement. Okay. What I think is plain as day on the video, and I don't know why people how they can see something and say that's not what they see. that's that's an impressive form of cognitive dissonance or something. I don't know. But what we see on the video is he has a phone in his hand. He's recording, right? At no point does he go to pull his gun out ever. Ever. There's multiple, views of this. He never reaches for his legally carried gun ever. It looks to me like he's out there recording. The ICE agents start to pepper spray this woman or these two ladies. He goes to help them, asking them, are they okay? The ICE agent aggressively comes in. At first, he pushes the woman with two hands, like aggressively. The agent shoves this woman back. And then Alex sort of inserts himself in the middle. And yeah, you can argue that you're obstructing some sort of operation, but like this is a man assaulting a woman who wasn't really doing so he as a nurse, I think, was like, whoa, and as a man, I assume, let me protect this woman, let me try. So he just sort of inserts himself. The ICE agent immediately starts to pepper spray him. He puts one arm up and turns his head simultaneously as like what I think is to block it. As that's a normal reaction. That's what I would have done too. You don't want to get pepper sprayed. I'm going to turn and put my hand up, right? Well, it just snowballs. I assume you're blind at that point, right? Like this is law enforcement level pepper spray. Okay, this isn't a little can of mace, right? You're blinded at that point. You don't know which way is which. He's trying to grab onto the woman, I believe, to keep her safe. You can't really see what's going on. They pull them apart. He's on the ground, like he's on his hands and knees. He never gets back up, and they descend upon him. I don't know how many full-grown armed men. 7, 8 of them. I don't know. Descend on him. He never pulls for the gun. There is clear video that they saw his gun and they disarmed him. One of the officers pulls the gun out. Okay, that's clear. Like you can't deny that. If you're denying that, then you haven't seen all the video angles because it's there. It is absolutely there. Clear as day. So they disarm him. He never reaches for it. After he's disarmed, while he's still on the ground, never trying to fight back, never trying to get up, they start shooting him. And they shot him 10 times in like 5 seconds. Make that make sense. If you thought he was struggling and you needed to stop it, okay. I mean, I don't think that's what happened. But are you not trained to shoot someone in the leg, the arm? That's going to stop them. Why are we just unloading 10 rounds into this man who's not fighting back? It was unnecessary, an unnecessary use of force. You could have just injured him. Is that not what they're taught? He wasn't pointing a gun at them. You know what I mean? They were
At
not
at
in
that point
imminent danger.
at that point, he didn't have a gun.
Correct.
I mean, he couldn't have pointed it at them. He didn't have it. Um,
Yeah.
and, I'm not gonna play devil's advocate here because I 100% agree with that entire resuscitation of what happened. But what I have seen people argue or present is that the officers were on top of him. The officer that disarmed him was not. And so the officers that were on top of him did not recognize that he had been disarmed. Okay. And that when the first officer shot, that potentially the other officers, which here's the thing, I don't know who shot, right? I don't know how many officers contributed to the 10 bullets. Was it all the same officer? Did it come from the same
I
magazine?
think
I
it
don't know
was
that.
I think it was the same one, I believe.
Okay. Because the other thought that people had said is, well, when the officer shot, did the other officers hear that, think it was his gun that had went off, and then join in on the fire? So
Okay, that's an
not
interesting
not
take. I had not heard that. Okay.
not playing devil's advocate. I'm just saying this is what I've seen some people commenting on. The other arguments that I see, of course, is you shouldn't take a gun to a protest, which we know that's now happened on both sides of the aisle, and sometimes it's celebrated and sometimes you get murdered.
Yeah.
It just depends on where you're at and what's
Yeah.
happening, I guess. But um, it was brutal. I mean, it was brutal, and I agree with you. What it looks like is he was a nurse. If I would have just watched you pepper spray a female, I would have also went to help her.
Yeah.
Um,
You would
I,
have. You would have.
I'm a nurse.
Absolutely.
I would have. That's what I do. I run to those that need help, not say, "Oh, I'm not gonna check on her." Yeah. I mean, I'm sure what went through Alex Pretty's mind in that moment was not, "If I go try to help this woman, they're gonna shoot me."
Yeah.
Right? That's not what went through
Right.
his mind. It's not what went through my mind. I would have seen someone who needed assistance, and I would have went to help. And I would love to say that if I was in Minneapolis, I would not have been down there and not have been in that situation, but that's a complete lie. I mean, I would have
Really?
totally been down there. Absolutely. Um, I've talked about this
Why?
a lot, and,
About that. Why?
disruption
Are you
disruption is a
okay, so
catalyst.
are you saying you would have gone to the protests after his death or,
No, I
like,
would have been
been
there.
there that day?
I would have been there that day. Yeah.
Really?
Um,
See, not me.
disrupt
I think that was a bad idea. I would not have done that. I would have stayed home and not gone out at all
I don't
if
know
that
that
was
it would have.
happening in my city.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know that it would have been the best idea for me to go, but I truly feel that I I I don't agree with violence. So I don't agree with, like, throwing now, if you throw tear gas at me and I have gloves on, I'm probably picking it up and throwing it back at you. But, I don't agree in violence as in, like, shooting fireworks at the ICE agents, which I've seen. I do not agree with that. Physically touching them, I would never engage in things of that nature. But I do think there is something to be said about disruption as a catalyst to change. And since the beginning of time, that's what people have done, right? In the Czech Republic, we
The
talk
Velvet
about the revolution.
Revolution,
Yeah, the
which I
that's so
gave you
funny.
a whole history lesson
Yeah,
on
the
right there
Wenceslas Square.
in Wenceslas Square where it happened.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What was that? That was disruption. That was essentially what you're seeing in Minneapolis. That was millions of people. I don't know how many people were there at the Velvet Revolution, but it was quite a few. That filled the square and demanded their country back. That is the catalyst to change, right?
And they were
A-
successful. That was the
And they were
catalyst
successful.
for the fall of communism leaving the
The Czech Republic, yeah,
Czechoslovakia.
absolutely,
Yeah, and becoming
absolutely.
a
And so
democracy. Yeah.
even in the United States, right? The 30s, women's rights. There was disruption. The 60s, the civil rights movement, there was disruption. There was also violence. I don't condone that, but I do think disruption is a catalyst to change. And I think what we're seeing right now is a very fine line between wrong and right. And uh, that fine line has people on each side who are very emotionally charged. Um, and if anyone should be able to see through that, it should be a federal law enforcement agent who
Yeah.
is trained to either ignore the emotionally charged. I mean, what do they ask us as nurses all the time? What could you have done differently?
Yeah. Yeah.
How could you have handled this situation differently? I think if there is anyone on the who should remain not necessarily neutral, but at least sensical in that moment, it should be the federally trained law enforcement officers, right? Not
Yeah. And
this
what
crazy.
wouldn't you think in light of the Renee Good situation that just happened with presumably them or their coworkers, their fellow ICE agents, right?
It was the same
Just
commander,
happened.
I think.
Think, okay. And they're already being just ripped apart for that situation. Wouldn't you think that maybe they might be a little, they might pause for a second before unloading an entire, into someone? Like you're already under the microscope. Why are you not being a tad bit more cautious?
Right. No, I agree. I agree. And like I said, I had that been a nurse, had that have taken place in the emergency department, could you imagine what administration would have asked us
God,
about
yeah.
how we could have
Why
handled
didn't
it
you search
differently?
his belongings?
Yeah, why didn't you take it away from him? Or why
Yeah.
didn't you tell him he couldn't have it? Or why didn't you I mean, could you imagine if it would
Yeah.
have been us and not federal agents sitting there, I think that they're painting Alex Pretti, who has essentially what I've seen has been a pristine record and background of nothing but
Yeah.
upstanding behavior and community service, et cetera, as a domestic terrorist. I think that that is a far
Mhm.
reach,
Yep.
but it is very interesting to say the least.
Well, I was gonna ask you, did you see the statement that his former nursing student made?
Oh no, I did not. I saw
I w I
the A and
wanted
A
to read
statement.
that. Okay, so
Yeah, no,
this was
that's
his
huge.
his, I believe, current or most recent nursing student that he precepted in the ICU, okay? So she came out, and I'm gonna read it. She said, I was Alex Pretty's final nursing student. He was my friend and my nursing mentor. He trained me to care for the sickest of the sick as an ICU nurse. He taught me how to care for arterial and central lines, the intricacies of managing multiple IVs filled with life saving solutions, and how to watch over every heartbeat, every breath, every flicker of life, ready to act the moment they wavered. It does not surprise me that his final words were, "Are you okay?" Caring for people was at the core of who he was. He was an he was incapable of causing harm. He lived a life of healing and he lived it well.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean that I don't have tissue, so you can't keep reading that stuff. But um that just it doesn't surprise me that his last words were, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, the woman that he was protecting has come out and said that that's the last thing he said to her. And it all was, "Are you okay?"
Wow. I mean, it's an incredibly unfortunate event that did
Yeah.
not have to happen, right?
It
Again,
didn't have to
you're gonna
happen.
hear me say this over and over. It's not political. It's wrong or right, and it didn't have to happen.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think this is political. And I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, I think we do have to do something about all the illegal aliens in this country. It does need to be addressed, obviously more than it was being addressed. But is this the way at the cost of, innocent Americans exerting their constitutional rights? Is this really the way we want to go? I mean, like the federal agents, they know they can't be sued, right? So they have this air of impunity surrounding them. They've been set up to do whatever they want.
Well, even if they were sued, and they can be sued, and
Can they?
charged. They can, but even if they were, it's a federal crime and they could be federally pardoned. There is this level of empowerment where I would assume that they feel empowered to do what they want and to take justice into their own hands because there'll be no repercussions.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. All right, let's talk a little bit about what has the nursing community said? Because I think that often the nursing community stays apolitical or doesn't get involved in these emotionally charged issues as well. But I've seen a few
Yeah.
statements. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
talk to
they're
us about what the
interesting.
nursing. Yeah, talk to us about what the
Okay.
nursing community has said.
So I'm going to start with the ANA, the American Nurses Association, which you would assume would come out aggressively against this. Or maybe not. Maybe if you know the ANA, you wouldn't assume that. So I'm going to read parts of it, okay? The American Nurses Association is deeply disturbed and saddened to learn of the death of Alex Pretti, a registered nurse in Minneapolis. We extend our condolences to Alex's loved ones, colleagues, and the community at large. The ANA condemns violence in our communities. The seriousness of this incident and others demand transparency and accountability. ANA calls for a full, unencumbered investigation and urges that findings be shared promptly and clearly so Alex's loved ones and the public have answers. And then it goes into 1 in 4 nurses already experience workplace violence, things like that. Okay. That's kind of the gist of it. Thoughts?
It is a statement that I also would have probably given. Um, it is a
Really?
very it is a very neutral statement.
Yes.
And
Yes.
considering that the ANA has a lobbying arm and has
Uh,
goals that they also have to accomplish, um, I can see them trying to make their point without causing further divide. Um, I'm glad they actually called for a full and a transparent investigation. That's more than I thought that they would have done. I thought they would have just
really?
essentially expressed remorse to the family for the loss of their loved one. So the fact that they said that they expect or that they would call for a full and transparent investigation is actually a stance that I think is further than I've seen them take previously in other issues. So I know we will disagree on this. I know you're going to be like, absolutely not. Uh, what are
I
your
think
thoughts on it?
they should have been more aggressive. Did you notice they did not mention anything about ICE agents or they just avoided that whole thing, right? I think that this is very par for the course with the ANA. You know, always trying to be Switzerland and stay on every, well, you can't. And this is why we need a representative body that is not beholden to anyone, right? That doesn't cow down to the American Hospital Association or any kind of political affiliation, you know. I thought it lacked teeth, basically.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I get their stance on it. And so it's so funny because Erica and I, a lot of you all don't get to see that we have these long discussions offline quite
Yes.
often where, and usually a little more charged, sometimes not yelling, but some with stern voices
Yeah. Yeah.
where we disagree. So
Now, what do you think or have you seen the statement from the AACN, which is the Association for Critical Care Nurses, right? So this would have been Alex's nursing association, right? Have you seen that?
yes. I did see it, and I'm going to be very honest in saying I don't remember all of its contents.
Okay, well, I've got it here. So I'm going to give you part of it. Our hearts are heavy as we mourn the loss of one of our own, Alex Pretti, a critical care nurse. The death of a member of the nursing community is a solemn occasion for us all. The American Association of Critical Care Nurses joins our fellow nursing and healthcare organizations in expressing our deepest condolences to Alex's loved ones, colleagues, all who knew him. We also pause to reinforce that nurses' advocacy extends beyond patients and patients' families to work toward a society in which safety and well being are the norm. AACN supports a complete and transparent investigation, urges that the findings be made available promptly. I think that they took a cue from the ANA and changed a few words here and there.
Yeah, I do think there was a slight stab at ICE in there, though. Um,
Was there?
that advocacy extends beyond the bedside. Um, I think that is
Okay.
essentially the AACN stating he was there in the right, and this incident
Do
is
you
in the
think
wrong.
so? You think so?
I do. As someone who's had to write these statements before, and not this situation, but in similar
Mhm.
situations, you always try to put an Easter egg in there of like, if you just take this and think on it for a second. This is
Okay.
essentially us saying that he was acting as any nurse would potentially would have in that situation. That advocacy extends beyond the bedside, and that it is about creating a environment of health and safety. And right now, there are a lot of people, especially in Minneapolis, who do not feel safe. And so I
Okay.
do think read in the proper context that that could be the AACN informally saying, even if we support immigration enforcement, we don't necessarily agree with these tactics. It does not create an environment of safety.
I think it was once again very non-committal, Switzerland-esque, because here's the difference. All right. Let me read you a couple from nursing unions, their statements. And I think the difference is palpable. Okay. National Nurses United, their statement said in part, "We are horrified and outraged that immigration agents have once again committed cold blooded murder of a public observer who posed no threat to them, as well as being one of their fellow nurses. ICE and all related immigration enforcement agencies have repeatedly shown through their violence, terror, and lawlessness that they pose a dire public health threat to the entire community and all of our communities. Nurses demand the immediate abolition of ICE, and NU calls for a no vote on the Homeland Security Appropriations Bill that is up for Senate approval next week, and demands Congress abolish ICE entirely. We will be doing everything in our power to vote out any elected official who supports funding for this all out assault on the health, safety, and civil rights of our people." Mic drop.
This
Can you
is
feel the
this is some
difference?
this is something that I've said before, and you've said multiple times. You wondered when it was going to come out. Do you want me to talk about it now?
That,
There
what,
may
that
be a reason that
the ANA is not the largest? Is that what you're talking about?
correct.
Okay, yeah, go
Yeah,
for it,
that
because
there
you all need to hear this, because I haven't used this. You're the one who discovered this, and this is like a mic
don't
drop
put it on
moment.
me. I work with the ANA on certain things. They're gonna be like, "Listen, sir." Um, although I think I told you this, I did say this to the ANA's chief nursing officer, so I don't think it's a secret.
Yes.
He knows that I've
Yeah.
said it. I've said multiple times, it's interesting that the ANA says they're the voice for all nurses, when actually a nursing union represents more nurses in the United States than the American Nurses Association, and that nursing union would be National Nurses United.
National
So
Nurses United.
I
It's
maybe
true.
this is one of the reasons that the NNU represents more nurses than the ANA. They
Yeah.
take a more pro-nursing stance,
Yeah.
on those things, and I see both sides of it, right? I see the ANA side of it, whether I agree with it or not, of trying to maintain neutrality or some sense of neutrality, considering the work that they do. I also see NNU side of it where they say, "We represent nurses, hard stop." Right? Our members, we're an entire body of nurses. That's what we do is we represent nursing, period. So, we don't have to cater to anyone. We don't have to bend to anyone. And so I applaud them on that. I mean, I 100% applaud them and respect um, that statement.
I'm going to read one more that I thought was good. This is the Massachusetts Nurses Association statement. says in part that they condemn in the strongest terms the unwarranted and brutal killing of Alex Pretti. As an ICU nurse, Alex often operated in the space between life and death, giving patients another chance, precious extra time, or dignity in death. In his last recorded act, Alex bravely put himself into that space and stood in front of others to protect them from further brutality. This killing, like the loss of Renee Good, has sent shockwaves through the nation and now has galvanized those millions of nurses and health professionals across the nation who know that in losing one of our own for simply exercising his right to protect the public health, in a very real sense, we are all Alex Pretti.
Wow.
That was powerful.
Fantastic statement. Absolutely.
Yeah. That was the Massachusetts Nurses Association. Washington State Nurses Association, WASNA, and the Oregon Nurses Association, they also put out really good statements, in my opinion. And, I will say that one of the criticisms against unions is that some of them can be overtly political. And that really turns some people away. They want their union to not be political. And I get that. I think sometimes unions stab themselves in the foot to an extent by being overtly political. But we also can't make the necessary changes that we need for healthcare workers without making changes politically. So I get it. I get it. But I just thought it was quite the dichotomy between the ANA and the AACN, which, that would have been his nursing association, right? You would have thought they'd be a little more aggressive
Yeah,
about it, but no, they were very neutral. And here we've got the nursing unions coming out very aggressively in some cases. So I thought that was interesting.
I agree. We're living in a time that I think is more multi-generational than we've ever been in, right? And we have different generations leading our PR efforts than those that we're
That's
targeting.
true. That's
And
true.
so, I mean, I think if you look at the ANA, at least up until recently, they have been a very uh, tenured staff.
That's a good way of
So
putting it.
if but I think that I do think you're starting to see a change first and foremost, and you're starting to see a change in not only what they're putting out into the universe, but also in their leadership. And I think that that's important, that they have that. I do think that there are some generational gap issues that come into play here. I would venture to bet if you looked at the PR department at one of the nursing unions as compared to the PR department at the American Nurses Association, there are significant differences in how they operate and the message that they intend to give. So I don't like all four statements. I do understand where the AACN's coming from and the ANA come from. I
That's fair.
100% support the two statements from the
Okay.
nursing unions. And which is so funny because I've never been part of a union for those that are listening. I don't live where
Yeah.
there is a
No, you
unionized
haven't.
hospital, so
Yeah.
I've never been part of a union.
Yeah. Did you hear the alleged statement about Call of Duty by one of the
No,
ICE
like the
agents?
video game?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Supposedly, and I don't know if this one was caught on video. So I don't know if this has been verified, but supposedly, immediately after they shot him and killed him with ten rounds, one of them said, kind of cool, like Call of Duty in real life or something to that effect.
Wow. Oh, yeah, video
Isn't
games.
that
That's exactly what it's like.
awful? Yeah.
Terrible. I did see the video of the ICE agent who said effing B word to Renee Good,
Uh,
and Christine Nome was asked about it.
yeah, and aren't they calling to get rid of her? Because they got rid of the commander, right?
They
What
did.
was his
They
name?
demoted
Greg
him.
Bovino. They demoted him, the
Yeah,
commander
and
of border control.
I think I saw he was going back to, like, local detail in California somewhere,
Yeah,
that happened. But
where
then
I'm
I
sure
also
he'll
saw
be
today
retiring voluntarily in
I
the
think he
near
actually
future.
is I think that's what the report said, is that he would be very
Yeah.
close to retirement. But I also
Yeah.
saw, I literally read it about 30 minutes before this started, so I didn't have time to look into it. But where a federal judge was asking for his testimony on potential contempt charges because he defied federal judges' orders in carrying out ICE raids in Minneapolis. And so I don't know what that.
Prior to the Alex Pretti incident, after Renee Good?
I think through the whole thing has defied federal
Okay.
judge orders on how ICE should conduct itself. Don't quote me on all that information. I was a breaking news alert that said federal judge request Bovino's testimony for potential contempt charges on his refusal to follow federal orders and carrying out ICE.
I heard that there's something like 130,000 supposed illegal aliens in Minnesota, right? But then there's millions in other states. Why are we in Minnesota? What do you think the strategy or purpose of that is?
This gets incredibly political. So I hesitate saying it, but you do realize that the governor of Minnesota was the vice presidential candidate who ran against Trump.
Oh, I had not put two and two together. Okay. Yeah.
And listen, here's the thing. I'm just going to say this here, and this is going to be telling for me. Okay. um, I I have voted on both sides of the aisle, right? And I have voted on both sides of the aisle for this particular president. All right. Did not support Hillary Clinton um,
Okay.
for reasons that I feel are very obvious. And so, again, it comes back to doing what's right and what's wrong, right? And so during our first term, I really hoped um, that Donald Trump would be smart and surround himself with people who knew the government since he did not, and he was a businessman, and that he would potentially bring about good things. Again, I watch and I let my moral compass drive my decisions. I obviously did not vote for him in his second term. So, and here's the thing, I will say this because nursing is inherently political. Everything we do as a nurse is really regulated by some sort of a political motivation. So there is that. I do think it speaks volumes that per capita, Texas and Florida have the largest number of um, illegal immigrants. And I'm going to use this in my law school. I'm not an attorney, but in my law school terminology, there's a huge difference in illegal immigrants and undocumented foreign nationals, right? There are actually more foreign nationals in the United States than there are illegal immigrants. So individuals who came here legally and overstayed their legal authorization, they are not
Okay.
considered illegal criminals, right? They came here on work visas or student visas and overstayed versus people who are illegal immigrants who crossed the border illegally,
Snuck in. Yeah.
who came in through illegal means, regardless of which term you use, illegal immigrant or undocumented foreign nationals. Florida and Texas per capita have the most. It is no surprise that there are not massive ICE raids happening in Texas and Florida because they are both incredibly supportive of the current president.
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't
You're
thought of
looking
that.
at look at Minneapolis. It's not supportive of the current
Oh,
administration.
okay. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Are you using the wrong term when you say
Am I
what?
using the wrong terminology when I say illegal alien? Is it, or does it not matter? Are you supposed to say illegal immigrant?
Um,
Is that the more
we
accepted?
You can say whatever you wanna say. In the legal world, we typically say foreign national because you really don't know someone's legalization status, and
Okay.
the term alien is incredibly derogatory,
Yeah,
um,
I just kind of
to
thought of
call
that
someone an
in
alien.
while recording this. I had not really thought of that.
Yeah.
So
So we
I
typically say foreign
apologize if I'm
national.
using not the best terminology.
No, it gave a teaching opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So I do wanna bring this back just a little bit to you published a video, there was some fallout.
A
You
lot.
We've now done this podcast. Inevitably, there's gonna be some fallout.
Mhm.
What what keeps you going? Why do you do it despite all of the backlash and the hatred and the $4 on average a month that you receive from being a nurse influencer? Because I
And
know
y'all,
people
he
think that you
knows
make
'cause
I
I
know people
send
think you
him
make huge
screenshots
amounts.
of the Meta invoice things that they send every month. And one time it was like 75 cents, right? It was like not even a dollar. And then there's like $4, $16. Yeah. So to all the people that are like, you make so much money, you just want the views. I am not the one. I am not the one. I don't pay attention to the length of videos. I don't do all the SEO. I could not care less or be bothered to do any of that stuff that all the other quote unquote nurse influencers do that probably are making substantially more money than me and certainly do way more brand deals than me. I do hardly any. So that's never my motivation. To answer your question, it's because someone has to. And unfortunately, most nurses are afraid to speak out. That's the reality, right? They're afraid of the backlash potentially at work if they say something publicly because that's a real threat these days, you know? Um,
Absolutely.
Someone has to say the stuff out loud and not allow themselves to be edited down or to put out a nicer version for fear of retaliation. I'm not saying I don't pay the price. I've definitely paid the price. I've been terminated for being outspoken. I just have long since, and I don't know if I ever really did let that stop me. I mean, I've always been this outspoken, always. So someone has to do it. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I've got two more questions for you, and they're heavy questions. Are you
Oh,
ready for
God.
those?
I don't know.
The
Okay.
first is a heavy
Yeah.
question, and I'll let you answer it, and then I will answer it as well. If Alex's parents are watching this podcast, what would you say to them?
It's not fair. I am so unimaginably sorry for your loss, and that just doesn't even do it justice. But we will not forget Alex or his name or the good work that he has done.
Yeah. Um, if they watch this, two words that I want to say to them is thank you. Thank you for
Mm.
giving us a nurse who showed up every single day, and as we now know, said, "Are you okay?" Thank you for giving us someone who was not afraid to stand up for what he believed in, who was not afraid to fight for an underdog. And even though you had no choice in it, thank you for giving an ultimate sacrifice that brought at least a bit of attention where it needed to be brought. And you should not have had to endure that. And I am heartbroken that your family or anyone would ever have to endure that. But thank you. Thank you for what you gave to the nursing community and really to the United States and humanity at large. We will not forget him.
Okay, well, that was way more eloquent than mine.
It was not eloquent. And then the last question I have for you, and this is a question about you. I think that this brings it all home. We talked a little bit about your family and what they went through. We talked about your great uncle's execution. We talked about what motivates you to keep pushing forward and to say things and to support what you believe in, regardless of the backlash. We talked about the murder of Alex Pretti and the backlash you received just from covering that story. What do you hope your family, your grandmother, your great uncle, what do you hope they would say about you now as an advocate, seeing the platform that you built from a single TikTok video, which you had absolutely no idea would go viral, to where you're at today as an advocate?
I hope they would be proud of me. I hope they would be maybe a little bit impressed at what I've accomplished. It's actually really sad for me because uh, neither of my parents understand what I do or grasp it, and they won't. I don't think that they will, ever get it. And it's not because they don't want to, it's because they're not cognitively able to understand it.
Right.
So that's a little sad
I
for me.
It is. I've met your family here in the United States, and I've met your cousins in the Czech Republic. I think they're all incredibly proud of you. I think that your grandmother and your great uncle would be incredibly proud of who you are and the platform that you've built and your tenacity and fearlessness. I stand in awe of that as someone who watches you on a regular basis speak and be just authentically you and not apologize for that. There's power in that. And so, just for me, I can't speak on behalf of all the nursing community because God knows they speak up for themselves in the comments. But I I want to thank you for the platform that you have, for covering nursing events that are happening, for speaking out for the profession, for saying hard things that other people won't always say or can't say for some reason, and for just being unapologetically you and who you are. I think that you are an amazing nurse advocate and an amazing friend, obviously, but I think that your family would be incredibly proud of you for carrying their legacy forward, even if you unknowingly did so.
Thank
So,
you. I appreciate
you're
that.
welcome.
That's very nice. You are also outspoken, so I'm in good
I
company.
I am, I'm just can't be as public about it.
But
So,
you definitely make waves and you definitely push the envelope
I
for
do,
sure.
I do, I will say
Yeah.
that, yeah, yeah, I do,
Yeah.
you know,
I
I
I just
and
I just wanna fix the nursing profession. As hokey and unrealistic as that sounds, that's what I wanna do. I want that to be my legacy. I want to help fix this broken dumpster fire of a profession in some
yeah,
way.
and I think it doesn't happen overnight, it's all brick by brick, right? And I think you've laid a lot of the foundation for nurses who now feel empowered to speak out or to advocate for themselves because they see someone who's done it and who continues to do it every single day and is not scared to do so, so
Thank you. Thank you.
great work.
I do think that this incident with Alex Pretti really has the potential to be a tipping point. I see us leaning in that direction. Today is the 27th. I'm not sure what day I'll get this podcast out, maybe tomorrow. I'm not sure what, you know, the long-term effects will be from this, but I really do feel like this has the potential to be a tipping point. There are a lot of vigils being held around the country this week in honor of Alex, and I don't see this one going away anytime soon. So, with any luck,
No.
maybe that will be his legacy for his parents, that he could have been the tipping point that pushes us.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've seen a lot of both political and apolitical movement after this has happened. And dialogue is important. And sometimes it's productive disruptors who create that dialogue or who create a space for that dialogue to happen. And so, Alex gave the ultimate sacrifice for what he believed in. And not that we need to take on that responsibility, but we definitely can't let that memory die or that legacy die with him. We have to keep that going. So I agree. I think it is a tipping point, and I think there is more to come.
You wanna
What are
do
we
a quick
doing?
little Enema of the Week award with me?
Now for your enema of the week.
Are we giving it to ICE?
I thought about that, actually. Could have easily done that, but, no, I'm gonna give it to TikTok because if you don't know, the TikTok sale divestiture went through this week to comply with US law requiring the divestment from ByteDance, the parent company, due to national security concerns, primarily with Oracle, leading to now a US base, like 80.1% is going to be US based control, while ByteDance remains a minority stakeholder. So TikTok put out conveniently a new terms and conditions, which is very complex and very alarming. We could do a whole episode just on that. Oh my gosh, they're taking advantage of everybody. Okay, you should be concerned. But the timing of this, they put out a new terms and conditions, what, 2, 3 days ago, something. It was like right when this happened with Alex. I want to say maybe that day. And then this happened with Alex and they shut down the whole app under the guise of, oh, well, just in the transition, there has been some little, technical snafus, but we're working on it. Really?
Right. Not
Is it that?
right.
Or is it that we don't want the millions of people on the largest social media platform in the country to be talking about what's going on with this incident with
Yeah,
Alex Pretti?
that is
Very
censorship at
suspect.
its finest.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So so many people's videos from 3 days ago, 2 days ago, they're still sitting there with 0 views. They're not posted. I've got them on my page, 0 views or 8 views. What is that? 8. You know? Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanna give it to TikTok, who is clearly not what it used to be, and clearly there is censorship, like you said, taking place, and the timing of everything is very suspicious.
Yeah, you can give it to him. The old tiki-taki.
Well, I did think this was a very important topic and timely, and we needed to talk about it sooner rather than later because it is really at the forefront currently. And certainly the nursing community is upset on both sides. Everybody is talking about it and everybody is upset. And so it's important that we have a dialogue about it, regardless of where you may fall and feel about it. So thank you for helping me
Yeah.
with this today. I appreciate
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Tell everybody where they can find you.
My government name, which is terrible that I've given this whole podcast under my government name. I'll be on the next list. It is Matthew Paul Garvey on all social media, on LinkedIn as well. And then I also have a website for my legal nurse consulting business, which I do all kinds of consulting, not just legal nurse consulting. But my website is Garvey, Garvey, CES, Charlie Echo Sam.com.
And you have an amazing blog on your website that nurses should check out. You've got some really important articles on there.
Yeah, I definitely do. I have a lot of them are geared toward legal nurse consultants, but a lot of them nurses can get a lot of information from. I've had one on the standard of care, what that looks like. I recently wrote one on liability for emergency department nurses, and what I see as um, the highest trends in emergency department nursing liability. There have been several care plans. That was a huge one that you covered, and I think kind of
Yeah.
blew up.
People
Are
feel
care
very
plans
strongly
obsolete?
about care plans. Yeah.
They do. They do. I did write an article on that as well. Are care plans obsolete in acute care settings? So yeah, a lot of interesting articles on there. Please get on there, read those, engage with them. And then if you ever have any topics, you're welcome. There's a contact me section on there. If you want to see me write on something, send in a topic. I'm happy to cover it if I can.
Right. Until next time on the next Nurses Uncorked.